triangles on here, or the yellow circles, they forbid the orange squares. So any thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
This is what I'm using. Initially for being in the group, or isn't it willing to see from different point of view, or willing to be part of any group that you can change? You know, I can come here like a very, very passive, so I don't want to, you know, I already chose what I want to be, not to be with anyone, you know. I think it's willing to be in any changes or any partitioning or any is okay. So isn't it important?
Okay, yeah.
Because we are decided to come to this class, this workshop, and we want to see from different points of view. We want to see from different angles. But how about the
So another learning from this then is that we want to do, as you say, to dissent from the container in which we arrived in the world, but we continue to be shaped by it. It becomes, it's still the sort of natural impulse to form groups in a particular way. So just think of this as, as we're reflecting and generalizing on it. What is my container? Wow, I know what I've been shaped to believe, to understand, choices. I really know, and I know when I step outside that and how that feels.
You can really philosophize about that a lot, because one of the examples maybe that I can draw on is that I grew up in a communist society, and of course we were brainwashed to believe that there is no God. And one time I come home after such a lesson, and I said, "Mom, you know what? I was told there is no God," or my grandmother, and she said to me, "You know what? Don't listen, because God exists, but just don't tell this to anybody." And the point is, we had a different belief, and we still believed in God, but we were not free to believe. So the difference is, yes, you can have a different belief, but you have the freedom to express that.
Kazi?
So, regarding group formation, so I find that one is you put something, the symmetry of letters, and another would be the choice, two options. So my question is, in terms of leadership or group formation, which one is optimistic, I can say, which one is better, or which one is no? Because assign something with lot of questions, you haven't even tried. That's got to be So my question is, choice itself, or like this, you make it go. Which one is better one in terms of information?
Anybody have an answer to that?
Actually, we had a little back and forth in the last workshop. Randall and I were both in the one on nonviolent communication. And can I tell on you?
Sure.
Is that all right? So Randall talked about, being muddled up by emotion, and then something about it needs to be attached to an action. And I'm saying, because in my experience, that one can get very muddled up with action that has not first been, grounded, and that in actual fact, it's sort of your learning goes like this. Your mind, you might, ears, mind, heart, gut. Now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it. Now I really get it. Now my brain gets it because my gut gets it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to return to this reflection, or just, in terms of the experience. I don't know, like the way I've come to think of this, is that these are just dynamics. These are experiences. So it's not a question of to my way of thinking of like which is better, which is worth. I mean, the truth is, this is gonna happen. It happens all the time, in society, and we always have choices, about how we respond and organize ourselves. So you know what I mean? Like, so it's just like it's not even. There's never going to be this world where we aren't, for what are ostensibly positive reasons or malevolent reasons, where we aren't labeled or categorized, or there are true differences amongst us. Those are just going to be true. There's going to be categories, whether it's somebody putting it on us or us taking it on, and it's always going to be true that we have choices, right, about then what we do with that information, how we organize ourselves. So that's how I think of that kind of question or that dilemma or that reality. It's just reality, as I think.
And one thought in this conversation is I received some really great training and education that for the first time something really clicked when you just said we're interpretation machines and we always do it. Human beings are constantly interpreting things. That came up a little bit when we talked about we live in a narrative, right? We're interpreting everything around us. So it's like when you just are aware of your interpretations, and then that's when those choices open up, because you could be like, oh, okay, I get it. We organize versus color, but if we want to let that go, now we can organize based on gender, or because we have other choices of organization, and that's something that I thought really illuminated this. That accepting, yes, we will always be interpreting because it's in our nature and it's exactly what we do, and it's understanding how that interpretation affects how we relate to others, to our life, to everything around us, that I've just had some really powerful transformation in. And it's been through experiential learning that I've had some really great transformation too, because it got me here, and it didn't change, it transformed. And great, so
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm going to, with some trepidation, I'm going to tell you that story that I keep thinking I'm going to, I'm not going to. At any rate, it's a very deliberate exercise on stereotyping. And I do it typically with a group of Muslims and Christians. So I did this, I do it in various war zones around the world, but this one in particular was in Chicago. So it was a group of about 40 people, right down the middle, 20 women, 20 men, 20 Christians, 20 Muslims. And so, and it was only sort of a day-long training. You can't do a lot in a day, but they wanted to be able to talk about in this particular area, this area of Chicago where there's a very high Muslim population, and they wanted to be able to get to know their neighbors better. And it was the Muslims who were taking the initiative in this. So during their morning coffee break, they were sitting in a group like this, I went around the room, around the circle, and I put down in the circle pictures of Abu Ghraib.
Oh.
What is it?
I don't know who that is.
Abu Ghraib. And people talk about as soon as I say Abu Ghraib, some of you are coming up with images. Cam, is it Matt?
And that's the Iraqi prison, right, where the inmates were. The American prison in Iraq, where Iraqis were tortured, and pictures were released. And,
I see. I remember.
I can't even stand like that without thinking of that one picture. You know, they're so everyone's just having their mid-morning snack, and there are these pictures. Making their way back to their seat, and I've got a couple of flip charts going on here. So there are 4 of us who are training: 2 Christians, 2 Muslims, 2 women, 2 men. So we start right out with the question: Muslims, what have you heard about Christians? And so the Muslims respond to the question is elicited by my Muslim colleague, and it's the Christian minister who's at the flip chart. Very important. Who's eliciting? Whom they have to pass through to get their statement up on the flip chart paper. So the Muslims were very polite, and they said very nice things. So the one who was facilitating this said, "No, really."
Yeah.
And so eventually, slowly, still trying to be polite, the Muslims eventually got to colonizers, capitalists, amoral, etc. So the Christian was putting these up and filled the whole sheet. And then it was the Christian's turn, and so the Muslims are sitting there saying, so ceiling didn't fall in, the lightning striking. And then it was the Christian's turn to do the same, to being elicited by the Christian and going through the Muslim who's at the flip chart. And so a similar sort of dynamic. They started politely, and then they started more along the line of devout, pray 5 times a day, those sorts of things. And then eventually got to the point of terrorists and jihadists and women haters and etc. So this was also going up. And meanwhile, all of this is silent, sitting here on the floor. And then it takes actually quite a while for the entire exercise, because we go from there, and then depending how the room is feeling, because some people might be way into their alarm zone by now, then people go into a Muslim-Christian fishbowl, where the 20 Christians are in the middle and the 20 Muslims are on the outside. And they get 2 questions to answer. And there's a Christian inside the circle. Do you know what I mean by a fishbowl?
Yes.
So it's just 2 concentric circles, and it might be just 2 people in the middle and 40 people around, but it's just, there is an action going on in here that if it is done well, the bowl disappears. It's really an amazing and incredible tool to use as a trainer when this conversation gets underway. I also do it with women and men. When the people in the circle bend into one another and this conversation goes on. I ask women in Mindanao or Sudan or Colombia, what makes a good woman in your culture? And you can imagine the fireworks that happen and you can imagine what's happening in the bowl. And the responsibility of the bowl is to sit quietly. Sometimes they don't, particularly the women and men fishbowls. So the Christians in the middle are to ask 2 questions. What do you like about your religion and what you don't like? Broadly understood. Manifestations or understandings of people out there about your religion. And so the Christians really had a hard time answering the first part. What do you like about your religion? Good, progressive Christians, let me see, I'll think of something. And then went on to spend most of their time talking about those things about the religion, the expressions of the religion that they just, don't want to even own up to. And then they switched, and the Muslims were in the middle. And they were just the opposite. They had a great time talking about Islam and what they love about Islam and the practice of Islam, the community of their mosque and so on, and had a real struggle talking about things that are critical. So I don't want to extend this any more than, but what happened, what emerged from those 2 experiences was that they figured out that what they have most in common is the gap between who they think they are, want to be, seem to be, and what is actually manifest out there as Christianity or Islam. Everybody has a problem, and everybody in the room owned. This is what I wish my religion were. This is what it is and can